I'm in a bikini, I'm at a pool party. I'm in a bikini, I'm rolling up. Right? I'm talking to my homegirl, boom. He just come behind me, slap my ass. He's in the right. I chose to wear a bikini instead of shorts.
Okay. What is that there's a lot of pieces of shit out there. What is that there's a lot of bad people out there. What is there's a lot of predators out there.
What is that Tweedledee over here is about to be so wrong in so many ways it's gonna be hard to count. Now this is gonna be a little jarring, but let's fast forward towards the end of this video where he says this.
So even though what that guy did is reprehensible, he shouldn't be touching women that he doesn't know, we gotta operate on reality. That's what happens when you yourself. When a man sexualizes a woman, 9 out of 10 times that woman herself.
And as we navigate through this video, keep that message in the back of your mind. Myron here seems to believe that 9 times out of 10 when a man sexualizes a woman has actually done that to herself. And while the situation that the woman provided at the beginning of the clip was wrong, let's operate on reality, and this is what happens when you sexualize yourself. I'm gonna do my best to show you why all of their ideology simply boils down to the phrase women bad. Let's move to level 1 on how he's wrong. The literal beginning of the video. The woman at the beginning of the clip begins with the simple question: if I was at a pool party in a bikini rolling up with some friends and some random dude came and slapped me on the butt, is he in the right for doing so because I chose to wear a bikini and not shorts? What Myron follows up with is a whole lot of not answering the damn question, whilst trying to justify why men will tell their girlfriends not to dress provocatively.
You can't control the world and you can't control the weirdos out there. One of the few things you do control is how you dress, how the world perceives you, being safe, etc. So this is why men don't like their girl dressing in a certain way, because men know these threats.
And while a lot of that shit might seem intuitively correct, it falls apart as soon as you think for a second. If you're at a pool party where the majority of people are wearing bikinis or swim trunks, and some random dude comes up and slaps this girl on the butt, how in the fuck is it partially the woman's fault for sexualizing yourself when everybody at the party is following the same dress code? So in order to make this consistent, you either need to also say that if a woman comes up and gropes on a man because he has swimming trunks on, that's perfectly warranted because he decided to sexualize himself by wearing swimming trunks, or you'd need to be saying that the simple act of being a woman at a pool party wearing a bikini where you're kind of expected to do so is sexualization on behalf of her. And before you say, well, like she said, she could have just wore shorts, we'll get back to why that doesn't fucking matter either. Level 2, this misconception of reality. You often hear people like Myron or the Fresh and Fit guys or people in the red pill space say things like this:
men have to accept reality, men have to accept danger, etc. We gotta operate on reality.
And it makes me wonder, what fucking reality are y'all living in? Because if we operate on the assumption that the reality is that there are weird people out there who will do weird things, the reality is that you need to take all the precautions you can as a woman, and the reality is that one of these precautions that you must take is controlling how you dress in order to increase your likelihood of being safe. And it would be mighty peculiar if there was, data or evidence out there that suggested that the clothing women wear has no bearing on their likelihood of being sexually assaulted. It would also be mad peculiar if this reality we're operating on is easily debunked by a Google search. And what the reality is that while yes, there is a gender disparity in between what men and women view as the motivations for women wearing sexual clothing. In other words, because we live in a society that ties so much worth to your looks as a woman, women will tend to wear things like sexual clothing or whatever, not to solicit sexual engagement, but in order to feel positive about themselves and accepted in a social setting, whereas men tend to view them wearing that clothing as they're trying to seduce men into doing things. And while this gendered gap in communication does exist, it does not A, mean that women are asking for it when they get sexually assaulted, and B, when you consider the lack of correlation between type of dress and actual instances of sexual assault, and this being backed up by other studies that were conducted, the reality that the clothes she was wearing determines whether or not she will get sexually assaulted is a myth, and a lot of the societal perception of women needs to change in order to be more aligned with the reality that clothing doesn't determine whether or not you'll be sexually assaulted. The reality is that the perceptions of sexual violence also need to change, considering that even though the data doesn't seem to suggest that there's a correlation between clothing and sexual assault instances, many people who are a billion times more reasonable than Myron and anyone in Fresh and Fit seem to still tend to put the onus on women at times when it comes to sexual assault. And one of the things the study puts forward as a reason for that is media coverage surrounding things like attire when covering sexual assault. Media coverage. Who would have thunk that always making it seem like it's the woman's fault would get people to believe that it's the woman's fault, even though the data doesn't suggest that it's the woman's fault. So, in summary, when you say shit like this...
So, even though what that guy did is reprehensible, he shouldn't be touching women that he doesn't know, we gotta operate on reality. That's what happens when you sexualize yourself. If you wanna dress like a hoe, be prepared for idiots out there to treat you like a hoe, even though you shouldn't be treated that way.
And painted as reality, it is devoid of the fact that a woman's clothing does not determine her likelihood of being sexually assaulted. It is devoid of the fact that the reason why a lot of people tend to victim blame like you have just done here is thanks to media publications hyper-fixating on what a woman has wore, which is exactly what the fuck you do. It is also devoid of the fact that violence against women is primarily initiated by intimate partners, meaning that same boyfriend like you guys trying to control their every fucking movement when it comes to dressing is probably the same ones that are beating them or sexually harassing them. It is also devoid of the fact that women who tend to have more passive personalities and dress up in layers are actually more likely to be raped. It's also devoid of the fact that things like sexual assault and rape are crimes of power, not crimes of attraction, and this is demonstrated in the fact that in the military, men are actually more likely to be victims of sexual assault. Unless, of course, you're going to tell me the men in their military gear were just too tempting for men to resist. It's devoid of the fact that the same logic isn't applied when sexual assault does happen to guys. It is devoid of the fact that men aren't just ticking time bombs waiting for somebody to tempt them enough to rape them. And that's evident in rapists oftentimes being repeat offenders. And it's devoid of the fact that even though you'll pay lip service to it and say, oh, the situation was bad and he was wrong or whatever, you blaming a woman for their own sexual assault is victim blaming, and it's just another woman bad thing. Seeing as here on the pro-men side, it's either we think men are so shit that they can't even be held responsible for their own actions when it comes to sexual assault, thus it must be the woman who tempted me, or we actually don't give a fuck about the benefits of men and we just think women bad. And since we can expect women who dress like hoes to be treated like hoes, you can expect me to treat yo ass like an iguana and yo ass like Franklin.